Hello, I'm Tony Trongone, Superintendent of Millville Public Schools, here to provide an update on our February 16th reopening of schools. So I have some information to share. And so I'll begin with, again, my lead slide. But then most importantly, this slide here, our real heroes don't wear capes, they teach. So I want to thank all our staff for all they've done from last March up until this date to meet the needs of our kids in these unprecedented times is the best word I can put. Every day is an adventure. Every different type of crisis is handled differently than it's been before. And our teachers are first and foremost the true heroes in this particular scenario we're in right now. So I want to say thank you to our teachers for all that they do and to continue to do for our kids in Millville. So I'm going to talk about COVID and the data. So there's a case rate, and it's Cumberland County. And you can see there's a blue and an orange line. And you can see the blue is Cumberland County. And let's take us back to March. So March 16th is when the governor issued the executive order to close all schools. It was supposed to be for 2 weeks. And then it became more than 2 weeks throughout the summer. And then in September, we were supposed to open up to in-person learning, but we were not prepared to open up due to supply chain issues with PPE. And there are a litany of things, reasons why we weren't ready. But we decided to reopen schools for in-person learning on October 13th. And we did so. We had in-person learning then. Well, let's take a step back. On September 3rd, we had school, but it was all virtual. And then it went to in-person learning on October 13th up until November 24th. We had the hybrid model, and we had the kids that still remained on virtual. And then, as you can see in the backdrop, you see that graph. The data was escalating at that time, and we saw the trend going upward. So we decided to close schools for in-person learning starting on November 30th, ending on right now, February 15th. As you can see now, it's trending downward. And so that's a good thing. So some bits of information. We're going to open on Tuesday, February 16th for in-person learning. The format will be the same as it was during 11/24, which is November 24th. So the hybrid model will remain the same. Schedules remain the same. The protocols remain the same as it was during November 24th in-person learning. Some questions that have been brought forth to me for as far as vaccine. So the vaccine for the adults in the district, the staff, or even for at-risk employees is not available yet. We've been working for over a month on this. Actually, I made phone calls yesterday and today, and we're working on that to try to create a closed pod and have it available to our employees. But right now, as everyone knows, there's a gap between supply and demand. And then it was also brought up about where kids are eating. So the issue is more at the elementary level than it is on the secondary level in regard to breakfast and lunch. So I wanted to make sure we're clear that we're going to remain in the format we had in November 24th, but we'll look to see what the best scenario will be for when kids are eating. And that'll be through the school reopening committees for each respective school, and then go through the district reopening committee. And then also there's 3 issues here: lack of deep cleaning, airflow, and other PPE issues. I think we have everything done for PPE issues. Airflow, where you have outside air coming into the classrooms, inside air. We spent over $100,000 in fixing any type of ventilation issue back in the early part of September, late August, early September. So there shouldn't be any issues according to what's been brought to my desk. But if there is an issue to lack of deep cleaning, airflow, or PPE issues, please bring it to your principal's attention, okay? And then again, we put the HEPA filters in every classroom, which is over and above what's called for in the reopening plan. But we want to make sure that our employees and our kids feel comfortable as they're back in person. And we had a pretty good stretch there from October 13th to November 24th, rather uneventful. I want to talk about student achievement now, and I'm going to focus this session just on the early grades, the K-2, the primary grades. And so we have this assessment that takes place in the classroom called DIBBLES. It's the Dynamic Indicators of Basic Early Literacy Skills. And it assesses phonemic awareness, alphabetic principle, accuracy, fluency, and comprehension. And then I see it in yellow, you can see I put down there, it's assessment for learning. So in September, in January and May, they have a DIBBLES assessment. Our teachers assess the kids, and then they can use the data at each time to meet the kids where they're at, and then where their weaknesses may be in literacy. And so again, it's assessment for learning, as opposed to a state assessment where they have a state test and then we don't get the results to the summer, and teachers, how does that help them teach kids? They don't even have the kids the next year. And so, but this DIBBLES assessment data is for the students that they have in front of them, and it helps with instruction. So DIBBLES is in 3 levels. It has core, which is on grade level. Strategic was in need of strategic support, and then intensive, which is obviously in need of more support, more intensive support. And we level it into on grade, level, strategic, and intensive. That's the vernacular here, and across the state for anybody in the country who uses the DIBBLES assessment. So for kindergarten, so for the kindergartners this year, there was an assessment in the early fall, and you can see that you had 100 students in intensive, 62 in strategic, and 86 in core. And then you can see later in January, this past a month ago, this is called the middle of the year assessment. We went up to 161 students in intensive, 61 in strategic, and 32 in core. So you look at the percentages, we definitely increased by about 24% in our intensive support for kids. And then you can see going back to the core, it was 35%. Now it's about 12.6%. So we lost over 20% of the kids that are on grade level. And that is our kindergarten class from September of this year to January of this year. And then what we do is we look at if they gained a level, stayed the same, even, or they dropped, the level went down. And you can see that 53% stayed even, a little under 5% went up, and then 42.6% of the kindergartners dropped a level. And now for our current first graders. So last January, they were kindergartners, correct? So last year when they were kindergartners in January of 2020, we had about 45% of our students that were on grade level, 148. We had 92 or 28% were strategic, and 27% were intensive, and at 90 students. And so when you look at the first graders that came back in September, that's the beginning of the year assessment, look at the increase in the red. So we went from 90 kids, or 27%, to 229 students, almost 73%. And then you can see the core drop from about 45% to about 15%. So we saw a significant drop in the levels that the kids were for reading from last January to this September. Okay, it's the same cohort of kids. So then I want to look and see, okay, did we make progress from September to January? And you can see that we did make progress. So we made progress. We had 229 kids, or 73% were intensive, and we cut that down to 183 and 61%. And we have more kids on grade level by about 10%. Excuse me. So that's a good thing. And then let's go back to last January when these first graders were kindergarten, and now they're first graders. You can see though that we had 27% were intensive, and now 61%. So it's about 44% change to the deficit for these kids going to intensive, so that we know we have our work cut out for us. And then just to break down as far as last January to this January with the same kids, kindergarten to first grade, you can see that about half of them stayed even, about half went down, and about 3% went up. And finally, for second grade. For in second grade, last January, we were about 45% intensive. You can see about 19% strategic and 36% on grade level. And then you look at this September for, again, last year they were first grade, now they're second graders. It stayed relatively the same, about 45% intensive. And then strategic, uh, it dropped about 8%. And then you can see the core increase. So there's a good thing going on there as far as whatever happened from last January to September. And I'm going to leave that there because then I guess that's the second graders in September. And now did they make progress from September to January as second graders? And you can see that we lost a little bit of ground, about 7 kids in intensive. We actually gained more kids in that area, but generally speaking, we went down with in on level about 7%. So we took a slight step backwards, but I still feel like the second grade is holding on, even though that's not acceptable. We need more kids reading on grade level, more than 38%. We want to be a higher level, and that's something that we're going to talk about as far as what will be the goal for kids reading on grade level. And then and then now again, like I did in the first grade, this is the second graders. They were in first grade last year. Now they're in second grade. So last year we had 117 that needed intensive help. It's 125 or 49%. So it's a 5% gain in the number of kids who need intensive support. And then as far as on grade level, you see the green, we were at 36%. Now we're at 38%. So we did improve there. And you can see the drop was in strategic from 19% to 12%. And then again, I always look at the day drop levels. And so we can see that 71% stayed even in the current second grade, and 11% went up and 17% went down. And so this is the assessment data for reading at the primary grades here in Millville, K1 and 2. And before I forget, another really important piece is the social emotional piece with our kids being back in school. So the data tells us that kindergarten, first grade, we need the kids back face to face so we can improve that, and also develop programs during the summer and even for next fall and the new school year that make up that loss of whatever developmental piece they have in their skills regarding reading. So we know we're going to have to put more time and effort for those kids so they're on grade level by third grade. All the research says that's the most important thing, to be on grade level by third grade in reading. But the social emotional piece, it's hard to measure that, but we know that the absentee rate is high, and you don't know what's going on at home. And with at Millville, with the at-risk population here, the school often helps the families with whatever's going on. And because of that separation, we, as far as from in-person learning to being remote, it's hard to capture any type of supports we need in the social emotional realm for our kids and our families. And so that's another reason why we need to have our kids back, because we love them so much, and we want to make sure that they're going to be on grade level, and they're going to have, they're going to feel good about where they're at in their life, in their short young lives. We want to make sure that they're doing well. And again, the second grade was pretty good. So in closing, back to in-person learning on February 16th. That's not going to change. The format will be the same as was in place in November 24th. I reiterate that. We'll be in a hybrid schedule for in-person instruction. It'll be a full day with orange and blue cohorts, and then Wednesdays are remote. And then the special ed and the preschool, remember, we went to 4 days of instruction, and we had a video about that. Yeah, that those folks should know who they are in special ed. And our preschool will be 4 days a week, Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, Friday. And then the virtual kids will remain in virtual as the request from their parents were put forth. So we'll have the hybrid schedule for in-person learning, and then also the virtual schedule for those that are going virtual. And then we're going to look at this in a formative way and make changes to the format as things unfold. So we want to come back on Tuesday where we were on November 24th, but then look at what changes need to be made. But they'll be made through the school reopening committees and the district reopening committee. We know that that's going to be best for our kids and for our staff, and we're going to do whatever we can to make sure everybody's comfortable and kids are learning and kids are safe. Thank you, and my door is always open to reach out for me. Trying to be positive and trying to do whatever we can for our kids in Millville. And in closing, go Bolts.